What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab episode 131. This episode this week is all about ult tracking. That's right, ultimate tracking, ult tracking, tracking those ultimates. You guys are going to need to be paying attention this week because this is going back to basics for some of us, and even including those of us in upper echelons of the tiers. As you ult track differently at different tiers, we're going to be talking all about that today. My name's Rob. We're on a podcast called Omnic Lab, all about strategic Overwatch. And joining me, as always, is the Georgia Peach, Andres.
What's up? Glad to be here. It's Christmas Eve. We're getting close to the end of the year. It's very merry over here. The girlfriend's super happy and excited to meet up with the family later today. So I'm just happy. It's a nice day. I'm ready to podcast.
If you guys ever were wondering if the Christmas spirit is in question, let me tell you, it is not, because I had some girls actually work up the courage to talk English with me from my visit school last night when I went to basically it's called the Tree Festival in a neighboring city, where it's kind of like the winter festival where people come together and make food, and it was great. Oh, cool. And I was wearing my Overwatch League hoodie like I'm wearing today on the stream, and somebody asked me if it was Goku from Dragon Ball, which I got a really big kick out of. So they're getting bold, they're getting happy, and man, it was a great time. But let me tell you guys, we got a couple announcements as we're going to be kicking off this week. And if you're new here, stick around through the announcements. We're going to get right to our main topic here in a little bit. But we have a game night every month with our Discord community. And if you are not in the Discord community, you can feel free to join anytime, or even just once a month for the game nights and join us there. It's going to be happening on the 28th of December, which is supposedly the schedule of the final day of competitive mode. So for a lot of you, you may not be able to play ranked. And if you want to play some competitive games with a big mix of players from all ranks, you can play from Bronze to Grandmaster in our game night lobbies all evening long. And this is not just for NA or EU. We'll be playing, if we get enough EU people in the NA game night, we might even make an EU exclusive one and just go play over an EU with some of you guys if you want to play with the hosts. I'm not sure how many people are going to be there, but we should have a lot of folks on break that are willing to jump in. Andres, who's our sponsor for Omnic Lab this week?
We got a couple of sponsors. We have Omnic Meta, as always. Check out the Switch Fox and his content over at omnicmeta.com. He has some awesome data analysis. He's been in the show several times. I'm sure you guys recognize his name at this point, for those of you who's been listening. But check out his website. Some really cool content. Also, check out our Humble Bundle monthly affiliate. If you use our affiliate link, linked in the show notes, also on our website, and also linked on Discord, you can join the Humble Bundle monthly game crate, or whatever you want to call it. Get the games that are being offered that month for a very discounted price, and help the podcast in the meantime as well.
We also have a brand new update a little bit on the back end from Top Score Solutions. They're doing a little bit of a pivot, and we're going to be talking with them a little bit more to kind of feature their sponsorship ad read here a little bit changing. But they're going to be in more of the free like esports consultation field. So if you want to check them out, find them on Twitter at TopScore Esports. Find their website at topscoresolutions.com, or you can find that link on their Twitter and join their Discord feed to go talk with their community there. That's going to do it for most of that. But just a reminder, there's an ASH scoped sensitivity adjustment that you're going to need to make yourselves aware of. I've abbreviated the link and put it in our show notes for the last time this month. If we get more requests for this link, I might just permanently leave it in the show notes. In addition, just remember season 13, like I said at the top here, is probably going to be concluding this week. So get those final games in. Keep pushing for that last rank if you can. And next week, we have a really cool episode that we sort of teased this week. Towards the end of the week, we were trying to get a guest on Christmas Eve, but it wasn't going to pan out because he lives in EU, and specifically in a country nearby EU. But he was a coach, features from the website Fiverr on one of Jane, the Dallas Fuel's assistant coach, YouTube page. And he's going to be coming on and helping us break down Diva next week. So if you guys have some Diva questions, go to our podcast questions section of the Discord and submit some questions. That's going to do it for announcements. It's about time, folks. It's about time we talk about some ult tracking. Let's get into it. So, ultimate tracking. What is it? So, tracking in this sense is not going to be talking about following someone with your mouse, but following something with what they can do in the future. Tracking as in you are keeping track of or mentally taking notes of certain events in the game and making sure that you know when the enemies are going to have their ults, even though the percentile is not displayed on the menus, and you don't always have access to what the enemy team has unless you have a specific setup with Sombra, which we'll get to later. Anders, anything to add for this one?
Yeah. Ult tracking is a skill in Overwatch that you have to develop, just like aiming, just like timing or countering the enemy. Any of these things. Ult tracking is super, super important, and you can use ult tracking in your favor to climb quite a bit. In fact, once you get to the upper echelon, masters and above, ultimate tracking almost becomes a requirement for you to be able to hang at that level, because it brings a lot of benefits. And let's go ahead and just jump into why ultimate tracking is important. Ultimate tracking is super important, first of all, because it serves as a blueprint for the fight. If you are able to know who is gaining their ult, who probably has their ult already, and you're planning ahead for this, you can make yourself a mental plan of how you should approach the fight. And this involves all different kinds of things. Stuff like positioning. Knowing what ultimates the enemy has can influence where you want to position yourself greatly, because just positioning yourself in the appropriate way can neglect a lot of the impact that the ultimate can have against you, or increase the ultimates that you are using if you're in the right position, right? You've been playing a lot of Hanzo, Rob. You know that Hanzo's ult can really fall flat if you just throw it out there. It's really easy to Z, and people can just move out of the way. It can gain no value. But if you position yourself in the right place where they can't really react fast enough, or it comes from an unexpected place behind the wall or something, or you throw it in the middle of the choke where they can't really run away for anywhere, then you can get a lot of value from it, right?
It's one of those ults where you kind of have to figure out what kind of value you want to go for when you're going to use it too. But we're not going to be going really into that. If you want to go check more about how to get value out of that Dragon Strike, you should check out our Hanzo episode with Auderge from Finland. He really helped us a lot with that. But there hasn't really been a whole lot of difference with how I'm using it, with how I'm learning to watch other streamers use it. But when you're ult tracking, you're basically able to make a decision on how you use your ultimate in some cases to adjust to what they have. For example, a very specific example would just be using Zenyatta's ultimate, Transcendence. And specifically, any defensive ult like Transcendence with Zenyatta, or Sound Barrier, Drop the Beat with Lucio. Those two are very, very, very defensive ultimates that you would use to kind of soften the blow of somebody else's ultimate or to counter another one. So the enemy team is using Graviton Surge from Zarya with something else, or they're using Nano from Ana onto a Blade from Genji. Then what you would end up trying to do is utilizing a support ultimate from Lucio or from Zenyatta to counter it and make it so that you trade their two ultimates for your one. And then they can no longer kill anyone on your team if they don't completely min-max the Genji Nano Blade, there is a way that you can kill something from 200 to 0, but you have to do it very specifically, and it can only be on 200 health or less heroes. So if your reaction is quick enough, you can front load a lot of this damage. And similarly, you can do a little bit of this with Brigitte's ultimate as well. But that's besides the point. That's
Yeah,
just a good example of how you can trade ultimates for one for another to use how you're tracking what the enemies are doing to inform how you use yours.
yeah, absolutely. That's another big point of why it is super important. Being able to keep track of ultimates and using your cooldowns appropriately, including your own ultimates to respond to that, is super, super important. Um, how you use your cooldowns is very important. And sometimes saving your cooldowns because you know that somebody else has an ultimate, it's like, I can't express how important it is. To give you an example, Anna and her sleep dart. You know that Genji has Dragon Blade. You've been tracking his ult. You're fairly certain that he has it. You don't want to use sleep dart just willy nilly at that point. You want to save it until he tries to dive you or he is in a position where his blade is out, and then you can counter his ult with your sleep dart. And same with a lot of other abilities. As long as you're tracking ults, you can deny a lot of ults, or you can specifically save these abilities to counter the ult specifically. So another very important reason why you should be tracking on them. And the last one that I just kind of want to mention in here is your focus. Knowing what person has ults will define who you want to focus on the most in the battle. Like we talked about, saving your CDs or positioning yourself around or just focus firing them to force that ultimate out or to deny that ultimate
Mm.
by killing them first. Um, and like
Yeah,
you have to
just
pay attention to all of them, but I'm just saying, knowing which person has the ultimate, that's your, your A guy,
mm.
that's the guy you're paying attention to.
Yeah, like you said, I think the focus has to do with kind of the main it's the main thing. It's the focus is how you orient yourself to do all of the other things. What am I going to save my ultimate for theirs? Or what cooldowns specifically do I need to use for theirs? How am I going to be looking at their ult when I'm tracking it to react? What am I going to do to react? Or better yet, focus can go to the next step of making yourself no longer making a reactionary decision anymore. Maybe you're making proactive decisions. Maybe you're saying, okay, well, this Genji is going to have Blade. And the second he goes in the sky, I'm gonna headshot him. He's gonna be dead. Or the next time that I'm playing Diva and I see that they're gonna have Graviton, I know they got Graviton, and the second I see this Zarya moving forward, I'm gonna make sure I can get in a position. I'm gonna keep flashing my Matrix on her over and over again, or I'm just gonna wait and wait and wait and wait and then eat it. The other thing you can do too is Reinhardt. Reinhardt sometimes just knows that he's going to get shattered, so he plays super aggressive. And what you can do as a Reinhardt against him is you can play aggressive too and wait for him to lift his hammer up, and then you, bam, pop your shield up and block it. So you basically just feign that your shield's down once you get the shield cracked like it's going to go down, and then you can whip it right back up and just block it.
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
let's move forward.
Let's talk about how we can improve at all tracking, because it is a skill that you can improve, and over time you get better and better to the time where you almost become a prophet. You can almost see the future. You can see that graviton coming at you before she even fires it, and it's kind of cool when that happens, because it really takes a game to a whole nother level. But the best and easiest trick that I can ever give you, it's almost cheating, is just look at the kill cam. Literally, just looking at the kill cam allows you to see how much ultimate they have. You can literally see their ultimate charge exactly to the T. It's not a super reliable method, and you obviously don't want to die just to see what their ultimate is at. But don't skip that little piece of information. If you do die, at least leave the kill cam on until you can see that percentage. And you at least know, are they low on ultimate? They almost have it. Do they have the ultimate at that time? Because that is very valuable information that not only you can use, but you can translate to your team. And if more people can do this, your team will be more informed and more ready for the fight.
Yeah,
Another
I also think that the kill feed is another really good one that you can utilize as well. If you're seeing somebody just like standing on their head on the enemy team, getting 2 or 3 kills, there's a really good chance that if that's a DPS or that's a tank hero, they're gonna have their ult ready to go. Or especially if it's a Zenyatta just fragging. Those guys are getting ultimate charge every time they get kills. Environmental kills have a much higher ratio, in case you didn't know. If you have any form of boop and you are the last person to hit them with something that changes the hero's momentum as they fall off the map or die, you get a large chunk of ultimate charge. And if you're wondering, how big is that ultimate charge and why is it so much bigger? Well, the big thing is if you can use any sort of environmental kill, they want to motivate you to do that. And how much ult charge you get is actually a large percentage that is modified based off of the remaining health of a hero. So if you have a 500 HP Reinhardt and you drop from the sky and bop him in the Ilios well, you get like 40% ult charge or something ridiculous because he is at full health and dying.
it basically counts as you dealing 500 damage, or basically
Right.
the amount of health that the hero has. It counts as if you had dealt that amount of damage to
All of
them
that
and
damage at
killed.
one time.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, it can be a huge chunk of ultimate. When you get like those double boops or triple boops, you basically
You're going to have
skyrocket.
sound barrier ready to go.
Yeah, and you can actually see the environmental kills on the kill feed. Like any hero that can boop will have a special icon that shows that, they killed with a boop.
Right.
So paying attention to those can be huge, especially against the heroes that can do. And like Rob said, just in general, paying attention to the kill feed, what are the faces that are appearing in there, can give you a general idea of what's happening. You can't rely solely on the kill feed just because you can't really tell if that person did only the final blow or they dealt the
Right.
entirety of the damage. But at least it can give you a general idea of who's getting the kills. And if you see a repeated face appearing in that kill feed, chances are
Hmm.
that they are getting a lot of ultimates. So you can kind of tell who's winning the ultimate race, right? Like who is gonna reach it first and react accordingly to that. Um,
That's right.
Another big part is just plainly player awareness, paying attention to the battlefield and what is happening, right? Like, did the enemy Genji just deflect a fire strike into your whole team and then dash through you? If you saw that happening, chances are his ultimate charges went up like 50% or close to like
Right.
70%. So you just like little things that happen in the battlefield can give you a tell. Does the Anna keep landing nades on your team, right? Is she getting some big nades, or the Ash has gotten like 3 or 4 big dynamites where it's just exploded entire your team? That gives you a good idea. Like this hero is putting in a lot of damage into us. Is very likely that his ultimate is almost online, and you can react accordingly as well.
There's something that I also would talk with a lot of my my small coaching sessions that I had with teams across the various time periods. Again, it's not like a consistent thing, but just something that some teams I'll tell is when you're playing at a specific level or when you're playing at different elos, you can even see an elos meaning like skill tier. If you're at like a grandmaster level game and one or both of teams are playing a Moira or an Ana, you just need to assume almost every time you had a team fight, the next one that you have, if they didn't use a Moira ult or they didn't use an Ana ultimate, so a nano or Kamehameha, then a coalescence. Sorry, I just had a brain fart and went with a Goku meme instead. If either of those ults you didn't see in the previous fight, you can 100% bank on them using it because there is so much healing going on that primary healers in this game are gonna get their ults, and it happens a lot. Especially if you're at a decent level like Diamond, Grandmasters, or Masters, or Top 500. When you get up to these certain levels, you have a certain expectation you need to be meeting, unless you're just dying in the fight. So unless you're farming their supports, most of the time those heroes are going to have their ult, and every single time you have a game, or every time you have a fight. And the other is true as well in specific scenarios. So let's go back to tanks. If divas are able to just shoot free damage, or Zaryas are able to shoot free damage, gain tons of ult charge. Reinhardts are just able to swing their hammer in games and actually hit you or land fire strikes without getting deflected. Those abilities where they're able to hit a lot of their abilities during one fight, you can bank on them getting it if they haven't got it already and used it. So you
Yeah,
just need to
absolutely.
like utilize that information of how do I gain my ultimate on this hero and understand that the enemy team is already trying to do that arbitrarily because they're playing that hero.
I don't know if you guys have seen the videos sometimes that some of the pros put up there, but it's ridiculous how fast you can get your ultimate with certain heroes under the right circumstances. I think I can't remember what tank was it. It was one of the Korean tanks that was playing on the ladder. But basically, his Zarya six-man grabs the enemy team, and then he gets nano boosted. He shatters them in the middle of the grab and just starts swinging at. Oh
You
no
mean
no
a
no!
Reinhardt?
Yeah, he shatters first, and then the Zarya grabs all of them, and he gets nano boosted. And he literally does like four swings
Swing,
into
fire
the thing,
strike, and
and
then
he
swing, swing, swing.
and he literally gets back his ultimate in like 6 seconds. Somebody counted it, and he was about 6 seconds between one fire strike and the second fire strike, and that's insane. I think that's actually like close to the fastest you can actually mathematically get your ultimate with Reinhardt, which was very impressive to see actually somebody pull it off. But yeah, certain situations can rocket boost your ultimate gain by a lot, and you should be
There
aware
there
of
was
those
also
situations.
there's another clip too of Sinatra on Hollywood right before Overwatch League released. He got a graviton surge in 12 seconds. It was the nastiest thing I've ever seen. Just being able to hit right clicks consistently, making sure that every single time he used a barrier, personal or projected, it was getting hit and going to max charge and just landing damage. So you just keep in mind if you're playing DPS, you're playing tanks, how do you get your ult? You land shots and you get kills. So if those things are happening, then you're able to farm your ultimate really quickly.
Yeah, Sari is another one of those heroes that her ultimate can take a long time if you're not doing it the right way. But your right clicks, your projectiles, if you're high charged and you're hitting several people with them, like if they're clustering up and they're hitting several people, you can deal an insane amount of area damage that will basically make you get grabs super, super fast. A team was doing this
Mm-hmm.
to me in Mecha Base on Busan. Were holding him at the choke, and they were being a little silly. They were just letting me shoot like the right click at them, and they were not really shielding themselves too much. And I got two gravitons in that choke point before they could even like make it through. So yeah, pay close attention to those situations on both sides. What enemy hero is putting in a lot of damage and how, and also ask yourself, can you do something about that? Is there a way to
Mm.
prevent that amount of damage from coming through? Because at the end of the day, it is an ultimate race, and you don't want to be the one who's behind in that race. The last one that I want to mention here about how to keep track of ults is just your internal clock. Literal timing. The more you play this game, the more you get a sense of when people are going to get their ults. Although, do keep in mind that this changes among ranks. The higher you start going, the faster and faster people start gaining their ults, and you need to adjust for this kind of pace. You need to know, hey, it's been like 40 seconds to a minute after the fight has started. This is about the time when, whether they've been dealing damage or not, they're gonna have their ult. Since the ultimate charge is always going up no matter what, even if they're not putting in damage, there's gonna come a time when the ultimate is going to be online. So you have to have like this internal clock going on for yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Internal clock is also something that is really hard to teach. Some of these things that when you play an ult track, it is just going to take experience and it's just going to take game volume. And again, one of the things that I'm going to keep echoing every once in a while on the show is the something that Andres and I actually just talked about in the pre-show is if you want to get better at Overwatch, you have to play it. And if you want to play the game enough to get better, you need to play it a lot. And it doesn't just mean that you play it a lot in one day a week. It means you got to be sitting down and playing the game, multiple games in a day, and able to do that semi consistently. Maybe every other day you can pick up like 3 to 5 games or 3 to 10 games. Because if you're simply not playing like a minimum of like 2 to 3 or even 2 to 10 games in a day over the course of like, I don't even know what you would say is like consistent play. I would say probably about every other day, every 2 or 3 days. If you can play like 2 to 5 games in a session or a sitting, is probably a good mode
Hmm.
of check. But probably I would say you need to be playing about a minimum of like 15 games a week
I would
and not in the
say
same day.
if you want to call it consistent, I would say at least 2 3 hours, as many days as you can fit a week.
Yeah,
You gotta
that's
think
probably
about it
fair.
as going to the
As a
gym, right?
block.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you have to train, you have to make it consistent. And all tracking works like this too. The more that you play it, the more that this starts making sense. The more that you're playing at that rank that you're playing in, the more you get used to this pace. And it's very important that you get used to the pace of the rank that you're at and almost try to outpace it. Can you gain ultimate faster than that? Can you be ready for that? Can you read that game and what their ultimates are happening at your rank? That's what's really gonna set you apart from the people in there
And
because
at some ranks, if you can set it apart yourself by even tracking them at all, because some ranks just don't do it.
yeah, no, absolutely. And this is very funny because people always focus on mechanical skill, and sure, that is one way to climb in this game, but another big way to climb in this game is to truly understand it, and then not only understand what is happening in the game but be ready for it, have like a plan in your head, act according to that plan. You don't have to be mechanically gifted god to abuse ultimate mechanics and to read the enemy team, to bait them into situations where you have the advantage, to make them use their ultimates in a way that they are not getting the most value, and in a way that you are getting the most value out of it, or maybe even making them waste their ultimates completely. It's another very valid way to climb in this game.
Let's see. Let's go ahead in the next category here, which is looking at indications of if someone on the enemy team has an ult. The easiest way to see if your own, this is something that I'll kind of interject here as a transitionary point that a lot of players that I've experienced talking to that are not, I guess you would say maybe not like somewhere in the platinum plus rank is probably where this starts, is that people just simply don't hit the tab key enough. People aren't hitting their tab key on their keyboards. People aren't hitting the, I don't know if it's the back key on PS4 and Xbox. I want to say it's something like that, but just to check your allies and who's on fire and check who is also has what percentage of their ultimate. It's a new feature in the game where you can actually see what percentage everyone's at now, and you should be checking as frequently as you can. Who has ultimate, not just yourself, and what do you have resource wise? You're basically able to measure your resources and your team's resources by hitting the tab key. So that's one big tell of how your team is doing, is a good tell of how the enemy team is doing. Unless you've been sitting on an ultimate for too long, it'll help you track, if your Ana's like using their ult on cooldown, how well is their Ana getting theirs. So that's one big key indicator. The next big indicator is a change in pattern. I'm gonna let Andres take this one.
Yeah, another way of telling what ultimates could be happening, or this one is more about when you think that they have the ultimate at that point. You're not trying to guess what their range is or who's gaining ultimate fast. At this point, you're literally seeing who's about to ult. And you can generally guess when somebody wants to ult you because there's a significant change in their pattern. Um, for example, a Genji. Maybe this Genji has been poking you from the ceilings. He's been being very evasive. He hasn't really committed to anything. But suddenly you see him come out. He's going straight at you and he dashes straight in the air. Like there couldn't be a more obvious tell than a Genji dashing up in the air. That is 101. He's about to blade you. He's hoping for his Ana to look at him, to maybe throw him an Ana boost. And maybe he doesn't even have to dash in the air. Just the fact that he's no longer just poking you from the sidelines and not really engaging. The fact that maybe you see him coming straight at you or he dashes into you, that's a good tell that aggression is coming. He has a plan in his mind. A lot of heroes don't just overcommit for no reason. Once they come out with that aggression or they give you that tell, it's very obvious that something bad is
Reinhardt's and Zarya
happening.
too.
Reinhardt and Zarya in the front line is very good because usually you have like the tank dance where both Reinhardt and Zarya are like interweaving in each other, not really committing too much. But then there does come that time where you see like the enemy Zarya just break away from the Rhine and beeline straight to you, and you're like, I know that she's trying to get past the shield and trying to get everybody in the back. So like these little tells like that are huge because this is a short window of opportunity that you have to capitalize on that and prevent disaster from happening. Like if you see the Zarya beelining across the Reinhardt shield, that's such an obvious tell that if you're playing Diva, for example, you can just aim the Matrix just straight at her. Um, if there's like no other option, for example, if you're Genji and you see the Zarya doing this, you can do like a Hail Mary dash in front of your team and deflect, and maybe you get the timing right and straight up deflect the graviton. And it almost seems like unrealistic, like, oh yeah, you're just gonna deflect it, but because you see it coming, it's almost like you're seeing the light. You're reading the future. The Matrix is speaking to you at this moment. You can read between all the code and you see it coming. So you can react preemptively, use any ability at your disposal to try to stop it from happening.
Something else that you'll see, especially at the mid tier and low tier games, is when I look at especially DPS players, and more often than not, it's the rise in popularity of both McCree and Ashe right now. When certain people start disappearing from team fights, you're like, okay, something's about to happen, and it's not good. It's a flank high noon, or it's a flank Bob incoming. And even just Genjis or Sombras just disappearing for far too long, EMPs on the horizon. You can just really pick certain things out. You're like, okay, well, the Rhine's there, the Zarya's here, the Genji's farming back there, the two supports are kind of engaged with them. Oh, we're missing a DPS somewhere. They're flanking. And if they're not flanking, then they're setting up in the back line to get a nano boost. A third tell, besides of just heroes disappearing and watching for the key aggression, like Andres was saying, is looking at in somebody's like botching an ult, for example, or botching an ability. If somebody is engaging for an ultimate or engaging to gain ult track, they're basically utilizing something just a fraction of a time early. And a lot of times you'll see this in mid tier especially and low tier especially. I see this so much more in those ranks. So you can be encouraged, even if you're at a lower tier, to ult track is much more efficient for you, because a lot of the times the heroes will be not flagrant, it's not the term, but telegraphing is something that we used in karate as a term. It's telegraphing, basically giving your entire enemy team a big hint. I'm gonna come in.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the Reaper. I'm teleporting to the top high ground, or the Genji, or the Sombra coming out of stealth before activating her ultimate, because she doesn't know that you should come out of stealth, then throw the translocator, pop out of stealth, and then ult. So there's so many of these mechanical things that get lost the lower in the tiers that you get. And these basic mechanical things can help you get a big telegraph, or even just simply using a nano way too early on
Oh,
Reinhardt.
absolutely. Like there's certain patterns in this game that just tell or just say ultimate is incoming. Like you were mentioning the Sombra, a good tell sometimes is not the most reliable one, and when you see it, it might be a little too late for you, but you can react to these things. For example, you're in the middle of the fight and out of nowhere you see a translocator just come, just like flying,
Show up.
just show up, and he's like flying towards you. You can literally see the translocator, and when you're paying attention to it, sometimes it looks really weird because it literally comes out of nowhere. Because Sombra is invisible, like in the middle of your team or behind you, and you suddenly just see like this translocator appear, and it's going towards your team. You have like zero point 0.5 seconds of reaction time there when you see this tell, and you know that she's gonna teleport in front of you or above your team and just EMP everyone. If you're Zenyatta, for example, at this point you're thinking she's gonna EMP and probably target me and I'm gonna die. But if you have your Transcendence, for example, those zero point 0.5 seconds are enough for you to see the translocator, see her maybe appear from invisibility, and bam, you use your Transcendence before she even has a chance to EMP you. Now you're in safe zone. You read the tell. Your team is safe because even though they can't use their abilities, they're within your Transcendence, and you didn't die. And you can. There's so many tells in this game, like the Genji dashing up in the air is one. Reinhardt has a lot of tells. If you guys are a Reinhardt player and you've been playing Reinhardt for a really long time, you know their Reinhardt dance. You know kind of like their moves, and you can really get a feel for when they want to shatter. Um, One, they might be like Zarya, just trying to get behind your shield and going straight towards you. Two, they might be asking their team to help him break the shield, and he keeps coming towards you very aggressively. There's a lot of tells. Like Rob was saying, you can even sometimes taunt the shatter. You can drop your shield
You
and
just play super defensively or super aggro when you don't have it, or you can play it like you just want. You can play it any way you want, and then you just surprise them.
Yeah, that's true. Although I've done it before, and the Reinhardt dance, I've just dropped my shield and let my whole team be exposed and not raise the shield. Like literally just leave it dropped,
Yep.
be taking some damage. And the Reinhardt is like, ooh, this is a huge window. But the second you see him raise his arms and start doing his little voice like the, that's
Nope.
enough time for you to react, to put your shield back up, and you just baited the shatter in this way. So
if your internet connection is good enough and your ping is, I can't do that on my ping, so good luck doing it from Japan on 200
and
ms, man.
to be fair, a lot of these tells are very short reaction times. Like you have under a second to do whatever you
Right.
need to do it. But sometimes under
You're
a
like
second
waiting
is
and
enough.
looking for it.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to be on the lookout for it. And not only that, this you can also commit this to muscle memory. The more that you do it, the more you start looking for these tells. It comes a point where the reaction just happens, right? It's instantaneous. You don't have to think about it anymore. When you see the thing appear, and this especially happens if you've been playing a hero for a long time, you know what your biggest threats are, and you learn to read these threats. And ult-wise is just the same. You learn to read these threats, and you learn to react to them quite fast the more that you practice to them.
Now, I have to say, there is something for our upper level players here. Because when you start looking into these tells, this is where the mind games begin.
Oh, absolutely.
Because once you get into Diamond Plus, or once you get into even Platinum games, I've had this happen, you can utilize some of the things that we're giving you as tells as bait. And I'll give a little shout out to Yaxam here in the chat, who is stealing my thunder a little bit by informing the chat that, yes, that's also a great way to bait out the trans. Because what you can do is play Sombra from stealth, and you know you have your ult, or maybe they know you have your ult, or maybe they don't know, and you're throwing a translocator right in front of a Zenyatta, and the Zenyatta goes, oh crap, and uses his Transcendence before he gets EMP'd. But the EMP never comes, and neither does the Sombra, and he looks like an idiot. And the second the Transcendence is over, you EMP and you kill everyone. So there's people like this, do this a lot, are Fitzy. Fitzy is a master of doing this. He does this all the time. He'll even just not play the game anymore, and he'll be like, okay, I'm just watching the kill feed. It looks like we killed their supports. So he's gonna help his team finish off the fight. And or maybe he just like sees that they go a man down and they go back to regroup, but they don't regroup all the way back at spawn. So Fitzy goes back to spawn and he waits for the support to come back up, and he kills them over and over and over until the team disengages and goes to pick them up, and then Fitzy leaves. But that's kind of like a more of an anecdotal reason for one specific hero. But you can do this with a lot of things. We gave a little indicator for Reinhardt or even Zarya. You can just bait out getting rid of D.Va's Matrix by saying, I have ult, and you have to respect that. So even just having an ultimate in your back pocket doesn't mean you always have to use it at the optimal time. You can just use it. Simply having it in your back pocket means that you have more power than the other person until they have theirs.
Yeah,
and they have to predict when you're going to use yours.
Just having the ultimate is a bargaining chip. You don't even have to use it, but just having it, it's power in your hands. And mind games are definitely a thing. These tales are kind of like basics, almost like as you start climbing into plat, diamond, people start reacting to these. But just as people start reacting to these, people also start getting better at concealing these tells. The more that you play a hero, the more you realize, when I do this, it becomes too obvious for other people what I'm trying to do. And more experienced players will disguise their intentions very well, or try to appear from locations you don't expect them, or sometimes going on the aggression when you didn't think that they should go on the aggression, or almost making you second guess, like, well, does he have an ultimate? Is like, should I be using my abilities here? And he baiting your cooldowns in this way, right? Before he even uses his. So definitely there's a whole lot of depth into the tells and mind games and reading the game part. The higher up you go, the more intricate this gets, and the more you have to be ready for players to, one, read you really well, and two, making themselves harder to read. But nevertheless, even at GM, even at the highest levels of the Overwatch League, there is such thing as reading the game, and you can definitely adjust to patterns of other people, especially if you're playing as the same players. You can really learn their play styles and read them at a whole nother level.
And that's where we get into the advanced ult tracking. And there's something to be said with ult tracking at advanced levels when you are really good at not just maintaining a few of the enemy ults, but also matching them up and saying, when they have this, they're going to be using this one with it. And it's not as simple as just saying, okay, they have nano, what are they going to pair it with? It's more of, okay, how creative can we get with our gravitons, or how creative can we get with our shatters? Are we just going to solo shatter this one guy every fight, or are we going to try to go for a big 5k? People get real creative with their ultimates, because the more you're able to be good at this ultimate tracking, you're going to find that you're going to be climbing ranks. And the more you climb ranks, the more creative you're going to have to get, and the more accurate you're going to have to be.
Absolutely.
So,
go
ahead.
And matching ults is not only, using them together with your team and stuff, but when you're playing against the enemy team, how can you match your ultimate? You were talking about this at the beginning of the show, Rob. How can you match one of your ultimates with one of theirs to either counter it and neglect it, or to gain an even bigger advantage? Yeah, negate. That was the word I was looking for. And some of it is very obvious and basic, right? Like, it's a common knowledge nowadays. Like, if Genji blades, you Transcendence, or Lucio beat, right? Or if you get caught in the Graviton, you use Transcendence. If you have Shatter, you break the shield and you try to combine Shatter maybe with one other ability to finish everyone off, right? Is the concept of predicting what the enemy team is going to have, and then seeing what's at your disposal, not only yourself, but your team. What do we have as a team, and what ultimates do we need to build to counter whatever it is they're going to bring out to us, right? And it gets a lot more intricate the more and more you go. For example, you know that they have a D.Va and a Sombra. A really quick and dirty combo is to EMP and D.Va bomb, because you neglect all shields, The Reinhardt might be getting a little confident. The Zarya might be getting a little confident. Like, hey, we have our cooldowns. If she diva bombs, we're gonna be safe. We can probably save the Zenyatta. Just throw a Zarya shield on
Sometimes they
him.
just throw the bomb first and then you EMP to follow up because then they started getting these safe zones and then you can EMP and they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. So you can both match ultimates with your team, but you also have to be aware of what the enemy team has and can you match ultimates to counter that. Like for example, playing Ashe. Sometimes I'll save Bob specifically for certain engages on the enemy team. Like I know the Zarya maybe has Graviton, and there's been times where like I've gotten grabbed, but in a position where I can literally put Bob in front of us, and I can just land him and use Bob as a meat shield, protecting everyone behind him. So you can neglect a Zarya ult, for example, in a creative ways like this.
The other things too here is just like okay, so we're gonna kind of go into the advanced ult tracking to kind of use it in a reverse sense, where we talked about ult tracking at the very top with Hanzo, just as like a key case study, because if you're tracking somebody's ult, having the ability of being unpredictable, like Andres was saying, with being able to more or less counter ults is one thing, or playing into aggression is another. But like what I was really getting at is when people are able to farm things ridiculously fast, you add a whole new layer of unpredictability to having your ultimate. So having something super quick and then using it right away in it itself is valuable, even if you're not getting a elimination by virtue of using it. And I'll use Hanzo as an example. Hanzo has the ability to farm a lot of damage without necessarily getting kills with storm arrows. A lot of times this ends up manifesting itself with shield break, but other times it just ends up being hitting divas when they're not using their matrix a lot, and then they go and get healed. So you're just dishing out tons of damage and you're able to get your ultimate charge really quickly. So what do? Well, you can use your Dragon Strike just like right when they're getting ready to approach in the one funnel. Like everyone's hitting W to walk through something, and then you're like, surprise, Dragon Strike. And the other thing that I was doing in a different way, especially on Eichenwald, is firing it down the lane where they are coming, even though I know that I'm probably not going to get more than one kill, because I know that this Dragon Strike now represents a funnel. They have to move in a very specific direction, and they only have two options, back and forward, because I'm cutting off both of their flank routes. So I might get a kill on an immobile target, and then the Zarya pops out to go back because I'm flanking now, and the Zarya comes right into a full quiver of storm arrows. So I get 2 free kills for a Dragon Strike, and the Dragon Strike only got 1. So just by virtue of farming something and predicting that the enemy team is wanting to come through with a very full force of aggression with their own ultimates, and not tracking my ult very well with how fast I'm getting it, that's a whole combination of building blocks in order of ult tracking kind of being just one of the pillars there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're using your Hanzo ult to counter their aggression. And if you can read when they're trying to get aggressive and you can find a good spot where they're like, hey, they're going to be coming through here. They don't have a lot of places to go. And I can time my Hanzo ult as they're coming through here. Boom, you just counter their ultimate aggression with yours. And ult matching can go very deep. For example, in the Genji versus Zenyatta example, Genji is another guy that can get his ultimate incredibly fast. Oh, and by the way, thank you, Sir Bro Dude, for the Twitch Prime. Really appreciate that. A little shout out to you here. Um, but with the Genji versus Zenyatta battle, Genji's a guy that can get ultimate so fast that Zenyatta might not be able to keep up with him unless you're like Jonak and just dealing a shitload of damage all over the place. But
Right.
knowing this might make you use your ult really fast. If you're ult tracking and you know, hey, I got my ultimate online in 30 seconds as the fight begins because I was able to deflect a ton of damage into the right place. I dashed through a lot of targets. I got my ultimate. Using it almost immediately sometimes it's a good idea just because you know that the Zenyatta is maybe only 50% ult. So you know that you have no counter at that time. And even if you only get one kill out of this blade, it might be enough, right? And gives you enough time to maybe even build another blade before the Zenyatta is barely getting into his first transcendence. And not only that, but you're forcing the Zenyatta to be out of sync at this point, right? Because now he's thinking, well, shoot, the Genji just bladed. Should I just be using my trance now to save my team from another ultimate? And at this point, once you get your next Dragon Blade, Zenyatta might have already used the Transcendence because he doesn't want to fall behind either, right? You don't want to hold on to your Transcendence for like 2 whole minutes just waiting for the Genji Blade to come through. So just thinking about this like synchrony, right? Like knowing that certain enemies are going to be trying to counter your abilities or your ultimates with certain ults and trying to outpace them or throw them out of sync with you so they can't match your ults. It can be very important too.
And if you're looking for kind of like a little bit more of a visual representation of what Andres is talking about, this specific example is very easy to find. Just go into Google and search EQO's debut into Overwatch League. Because in that game, I believe on one side, on offense on Hanamura map in particular, that's the one you want to watch. If EQO of Philadelphia Fusion, I think they were facing off against Dallas Fuel in stage 3. I think is probably when
I
it
think
was.
so.
Maybe stage
Yeah,
2.
two or three.
EQO came out of the gates farming ult, and I'm pretty sure he had like 5 Dragon Blades on offense alone. Like the guy is crazy building his ult super quick and almost on cooldown. Farmed his ult, got it, used it, killed 3, got his ult again, used it on cooldown, and he's just playing so aggressive, and his team is able to support that. So let's kind of go back a couple steps here when you're ult tracking. If you're able to do this with multiple minds, let's say Andres and I are playing together. We're in duo queue and we're tracking ults. Sometimes my ult tracking might even be stylistically or just realistically inaccurate. Maybe how I play the game, I'm really good at tracking support ults, but Andres is super good at tracking the DPS ults or the tank ults.
Depending on who you're playing, your focus is different. So you might actually
Right.
get different information throughout the game. Yeah.
So you can use this to find your friends that are ult tracking or trying to learn how to ult track and complement each other by playing together. You can say, okay, well, how did you know that this guy was going to do it? Well, he was doing this. And you have some real world feedback in the post game while you're queuing up for your next game or when you're taking a break because you got salty after you lost. You're like, okay, well, we died to this over and over and over again. Was it because we didn't see it? Was it because we didn't predict it? Because those are 2 different things. Like if you're having different discussions, sometimes you're dying to something because you mechanically didn't do enough to get out of the way, or you're not landing shots in order to deal with it. And then there's the other side of the coin where you're literally just getting caught off guard because they're doing something that you didn't see coming. And it's a very basic situation that presented itself. You're like, I'm standing in this very obvious position because I have my ultimate, so I'm going to play super aggressively, or I'm standing out in the open because I'm ready to go use my ult. And the enemy team's like, well, I know that's why you're there, so I'm going to punish that. I'm going to kill you because you're right there when you should have played it safe. And when you get into the more advanced sections of ult tracking, you can see, well, I'm going to play aggressive because I think that they're going to try to punish me for this. And as soon as they try to punish me for this, I'm just going to have somebody else ult in the back, or I'm going to send my flankers in. Something like that.
Yeah,
so you have all these different
setting
options.
up baits. Yeah, setting up baits. Yeah, definitely works for sure. And these are we lay all these in the category of advanced because this is once you start playing with ults, right? Like hopefully you develop a good sense of timing. You can develop a good sense of awareness. The more that you play, the better you get at ult tracking. And once you start getting good at ult tracking, you can really start playing all these mind games. You can start matching the ults. You can start thinking the fight in terms of time almost,
Yeah.
right? Like you start thinking of like, wow, got this ultimate really fast. Let's just go ahead and use it. And it's almost a race, right? Like both teams are just racing to get as much significant damage in so that they can get more ultimates online and start snowballing and keep it going, right? Another advanced tactic with ults is Sombra. I wanted to mention Sombra because she is the only hero in the game that can actually show you exactly if they have ultimates
Who has
or
ultimate?
not. Yeah, there's no more guessing. With Sombra, if you hack him and they have an ultimate, you will see the little check mark above their heads clearly indicating this person has ultimate. Not only that, if you EMP them, you can also see that on everyone that you EMP. And not only you can see it, your entire
Your whole team
team
can see it.
can actually see it. So if your team is actually paying attention and using Sombra the right way, you can extract a lot of information from the enemy team. And is one of the reasons why Sombra starts getting like really, really good at the higher levels is because teams can actually take advantage of that huge feature that this hero has, and no other hero has this. Um, and not only that, also the ability to completely just disable ultimates with just hacking them, even though they have the
Yeah, and you're
ultimate.
disabling more than an ultimate too. You're basically getting information, disabling ultimates, and disabling any cooldowns that that ally has. And it's really great on heroes like Diva and even just like Mercies or Moira's because you're disabling their escapes. If you're able to do hack somebody, get information about their ultimate, and deny them an escape mechanism, you're pretty much just catching them with their pants down at that point.
Yep.
They have no ways of dealing with you at that point. Now, the other thing that I wanted to piggyback off what Andres is saying is Sombra with EMP and with hack, for whatever reason, I kind of am cautious to say this because I'm pretty sure this is true, but I don't know how I can really check this on Sombra's page. But from what I understand, the little icon that displays if a hero has their ultimate actually outlasts the hack and outlasts the EMP itself. You will see that indicator above them for a few seconds longer, as almost if it's kind of like still on them before that thing disappears. The hack will basically end, or the EMP thing ends. And I'm trying to find this on their website, but I'm not 100% on this. I'm trying to see if I can figure this out. But basically, it's a little glow that
It's
you
like
can
a
do.
white globe, right, above their head.
Yeah, it's just a little white like orb that has a check mark on it.
Yep.
Now, Andres, is have you had this in your experience? Is this something here that you've been around with? Like I'm trying to like buy for time while I'm talking here while I'm looking.
What
It's not really working out
what
very
was your
well.
question? I'm sorry.
Basically, do you think that on like when you're using your EMP or you're using your hack, do the ultimates like displaying, I think, last longer than the actual hack or the EMP itself?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure, but it does last at least as long as the duration of the hack. It might linger for a little bit more. Um, but yeah, your team has to be kind of on it. You know, you have to be looking out for it. You have to be looking at the hack target and if they have the check mark. But once you know what you're looking for and you're paying attention to that, you'll see it almost every time. And it'll become like a huge siren for you and your team. And hopefully, if even if it's only you that is seeing it as Sombra, you're relaying this information to your team, right? You can just an easy Ryan has shatter, Saria has grab. You know, I mean, that's all it takes, and now your team knows that. But it's also why Sombra it's such a powerful hero if you can learn how to ult track. Because not only you're getting that information, but if you're using that information accordingly and your ult tracking is on point, you can just get rid of the ultimate with an easy hack. You can see the tells hack. You can see who's ready to ult. Like the Zenyatta has Transcendence. Well, that's my hack target this fight. The Zarya has Graviton. That's my hack target this fight. And if you constantly do this, you can really get in the way and throw a team off of sync to the point where they might start misusing their ults just so they can get him out.
Okay, I have it. The hack or the EMP lasts for a full 6-second duration. That's abilities, that's ultimates, they're denied. Okay. And if you have a shield on you, so if you're playing Symmetra, you're playing Lucio's Beat Drop, or if you're playing Zarya, or you're playing her Prime Prey, which is Zenyatta, all of those shield health bars go away. And the ultimate status and the health bar of the hero that you hacked or EMP'd will be revealed for 20 seconds.
Oh, there you go. So it does linger for quite a
So
significant
it
amount of time.
lingers 14 seconds longer, and it will linger even if they don't have their ultimate. They're able to shoot or do something, do an ability if they're still alive. And while they're shooting and stuff, if they happen to gain their ultimate over the course of that time period, you'll see the indicator pop up above their head. And we do have a question in chat that I would be interested to research. I don't think this is the case for the record, but I'm not sure on this, but they're asking, can you also see enemy ults in the tab screen after somebody's been hacked? I do not believe that's how it worked at all, but you will be able to see it above the hero's head when they are running around in the wild. When you're trying to kill them or play against the enemy team, you can see it above them, but that's the only way I can see them. But yeah, like seeing the health bars is also something I totally forgot about, because the health bars is available for everyone to see while you're attacking somebody.
There you go. So even more powerful than we initially thought. All right, the last thing that I did want to mention before we close out the show, because we're getting up to about that time, is denying ults. And by denying ults, I mean, if you're able to ult track accordingly, you can deny a lot of ults in very creative ways. For example, a Zarya ult, only really effective if your team is close together. If you know this and you know that Zarya has ult, just a simple positioning change for your team, spreading out just a little bit, can really deny this ult, because the Zarya will literally have no clear target on where to throw it. Like maybe she'll throw it at your Ana just to straight up get rid of her and she can't run away. But it's really not as effective if she got in 3 or 4 of you. Another example of this is Widowmaker ult, for example. She uses her walls, and you know that now she has vision of you. If you have your own Widowmaker, you can use your own walls, and then straight up even up the terms, right? And mashing those ultimates, for example, can be a good way of denying
Or just seeing
the
where people are
value of
setting
it.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. Transcendence, for example. Zenyatta is transcending. You couldn't hack him. You couldn't do anything else. Guess what? The Ana grenade still a fantastic way to deny any healing, and it lasts about the same amount of time as the transcendence. So if you know that this Zenyatta is gonna transcend in the middle of your Zarya Graviton, you can throw that grenade in there, and suddenly that ultimate has been denied. Doesn't matter that he used it at the right time. Doesn't matter that he was able to read the situation. You denied that ultimate. So there's like some straight up hard counters that you can use, and you can get very creative with the way that you use them.
Mm-hmm. I wanna go back and just say, if we're gonna go back and check out the entire discussion, kind of just a recap, we covered what is ult tracking, why it's important, how can I improve, what are some indicators, and some advanced tips. Okay. But what is like the one thing that you walked away from this episode? Please let us know in our Discord, or in the Discord, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can send us a comment there and we'll read it. But for me, the one thing that I learned the most with ultimate tracking as being an evaluation is learning how that informs me how I should use my abilities coming up. What am I saving? Why am I sitting on this ability for so long?
Where are
Am
you
I
positioning?
should I Yeah, where am I positioning? Where am I at? Where should my team be? Where should I be in relation to everything that's going on? But you have to remember, if you're ult tracking, it helps you use your abilities better, because you're able to predict certain things to happen, even if they're not happening at extreme situational points where you're like, I'm firing this projectile that has like a full or has like 0.5 second travel time, and I'm firing up right before they're doing it. We're not talking about predicting stuff like that. We're simply just saying having your resources available. This is a big step one. And the step 2 is having your fingers not only on the keyboard, but prepared, ready for them when they use something to activate it. And practicing ult tracking gets you to a point where you can start using your abilities predictively and also non-reactively, being proactive and not reactive in a lot of cases. If you play a lot of
Absolutely.
support, you're going to be playing a lot of reactively. But if you're playing a lot of other things, pretty much any non-supports, you're going to be playing pretty proactively.
Oh, and the last thing, it actually is related to
Okay.
what you just,
Okay.
it's actually related to what you said. Using your abilities the right way. It's not only in relation to like when they have their ult, but you should be using their abilities in relation to denying their ult too. Um, you want to be taking the least amount of damage possible to make it harder for the enemy team to get that ult advantage on you. And this includes so many things like as Diva, for example, you can eat every shatter or not shatter, every shockwave from Reinhardt. If you're just paying attention, he will literally not get a shockwave into your team ever because you only have to right click for like zero point 0.2 seconds when you see this slow moving huge yellow thing coming towards you, and that's it, you erase that. And just by doing this, you denied so much ultimate charge from the Reinhardt to the point where it's gonna take him forever to get this charge. And this comes if you're Reinhardt, for example, and you're shockwaving. I've seen some Reinhardts just literally stand in front of the enemy team, shockwave, take an insane amount of damage while their shield
Fire
is
strike?
down. Yeah, fire strike. That's what I'm talking about. Not shockwave. Fire strike.
Playing too much WoW, man.
I know. They take an insane amount of damage while they're fire striking, and they don't realize how much ultimate charge they're giving away. But a more experienced Reinhardt will hide behind the wall, peek as the fire strike is coming out of his hands, come back around the wall, and once his animation has finished, he can come out with his shield up, and he took almost no damage as he's putting out this fire strike. So small details like this can really, really affect how much ultimate charge the enemy team is getting versus how much you're denying the enemy team from getting. So really keep this in mind because it really becomes more important as you're climbing the ranks. Try not taking any damage at all. It's really hard in Overwatch, but you can really minimize it a lot, and you can help your teammates not take as much damage too. Especially if you're a tank, you have a lot of tools to make this happen.
All right, folks. For virtue of keeping with schedule, we're gonna kind of cut it short here. If you guys are listening on audio, we hope that you're able to enjoy your Christmas holiday season, and if you're out here in the East, especially, yo tashio, which means have a happy new year before the new year starts. There's also a different phrase that I'm still working on memorizing, which is the one you're supposed to say to somebody that means happy new year for the new year after it's already happened. That being said, I hope that you guys enjoy your May Snowball Offensive, and please come to the game night for ult tracking practice. It's really, really good because you have a big mix of players. You can hear other players ult tracking and kind of like take some notes, ask them how they knew. And furthermore, you can also hear us playing together and getting upset at other people farming us because we have higher tier players than Andres and I there to kill us too. So we're in the same boat, fam. Thanks again to our special sponsors that are on patreon.com/omniclab. You guys have really helped us out. And we have a few new people on the team. I guess the holiday season extended to a few of you to want to share some more love with us on the Omnic Lab team. Special thanks to our continued sponsors, Top Score Solutions, Anthony E., aka Silver Loki. We also have Solo PS4, Jan Jinkle, Durandal, Roger B. Britmish, Shazir, who actually recently upgraded his pledge again. Thank you so much, Shaz, who's also in the chat, berating Andres and I for fun. I really appreciate it, and keep us in line. We also have Krista Playa and Tragic Zach with Lysum or Lysum. Thanks again, you guys, as well as new to the team, Carson W, Judson C, and Matthew Z on the new Diamond Squad. Welcome, 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 everyone. I think that's going to do it. If you guys also want to try to support us financially, we are accepting our Twitch subs because we're Twitch affiliates. So if you have Twitch Prime, you can leave us a Twitch sub there, or if you just want to use one of your Twitch subs on us, that's great. If you want to find anything to do with the show, please go to omniclab.com/links. You can find everything: our Discord community, our Twitter, our Patreon, our Twitch, our YouTube, and our merch. If you want merch, you can find it. We have hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, and tote bags and coffee mugs. Coffee mugs are the #1 most seller, high sold item, and I have one actually right there in the live stream behind me. If you guys want one, you can head it up there. If you have any questions, especially submit those diva questions, folks, in our Discord. We will get to them. We already have a few, and we're also taking any questions you have on how to get into coaching from our next guest. Andres, where can people find you on the interwebs when you're not chowing down on fruitcake and opening presents?
Oh, I'm going to be chowing down a lot of fruitcake this holiday season. But if you want to find me, you can go to Twitter and look up I Play Games. You spell that IPLAI Games. I've been really busy with school this past half of the year, so I haven't been doing a lot of extra projects. I've been trying to focus on that. It's going good. It's going good. I'm almost done with it. I got like 2 more months of it and I'll be done. So hopefully a lot more projects coming in my way after that is finished. And yeah, check me out on Twitter for now.
You can check me out on Twitter at NotRob. You'll also see me on Velen's Chosen podcast with special guest Sidisi talking about the brand new card nerfs on Velen's Chosen with my co-host Grant. We're going to be talking a lot about Hunter. We have 3 brand new Hunter deck lists for you with Sidisi, who is a top Hunter player. So very, very cool to have him there. And on Concept Craft, you guys will actually get an episode coming up here. My friend Steven Sensei did a really, really cool one-shot that is all Christmas and Krampus themed for D&D 5e. If you're interested in that sort of thing, there's a 3-hour episode coming into the feeds in the next 2 days for a little Christmas fun. Thank you guys for listening to 131, and be sure to tune in for 132 on the new year with our good friend to talk about Diva. And you'll see a slight update on my camera feed too next week. If you guys are looking to play, please come to the game night, 28th. See you there. Remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist.
We had a full chat today. Thanks for everyone
full
who came.
House.
Yeah, Shazir, Ampsych. We got Carson Woods. Hi. I'm just gonna call you Carson.
I think it was Carson
Sombra
was
dude.
here. Instead of Carson was here, Carson was hair.
Oh. Of course.
That's nice. I like that.
Of course.
Amp Psycho. Sir Bro Dude. That's such a great name.
Sir Bro Dude. And Yaxim stopped by too.
And Mar 4040. We even had Great Root Beer pop in for a little bit. Thank you guys.
Great root beer.
Should promote our YouTube some more. Go check us out on YouTube, guys. You can check the full VOD if you missed it.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yo yo tashio.